It seems that we are live. Good evening, everyone. If you can hear us or see us, please say so in the chat.
Florian?
30 seconds for people to arrive. I can get in.
Yeah.
Okay, we get started. Good evening, District 91. How are we doing on this fine Guy Fawkes night? It's quite amazing. It's of sound on light, in not far away. Well, even because of the Crystal Palace fireworks, I can hear fireworks. I can see things from my bedroom windows. It's absolutely amazing. But we're going to have something even more amazing later on. We're going to have our regional advisor, Aletta Rocha, doing this webinar for us all tonight. Now, Aletta is someone I first met a year ago in Ascot, not at the race, at a Toastmaster deck meeting. And she handed me a little card saying, can you write something unusual about yourself? And for a couple of seconds, I went, what can I write about something unusual about myself? I ended up writing something I'm glad I wasn't picked upon to do a table topic about, because it's something that is slightly embarrassing. That's, I think, it involves rooms. Now, later I'm like, there was a little voice inside me telling me, you need to listen to this woman, Flora, good things. And tonight she's going to share us a secret club that our member magnets, Jin, having a club in London, maybe outside of London, where you're sucking in the guests, sucking in the members from all over, and you get 40, 50, 60 members. It would be absolutely amazing. So you've got a lot of meeting in Africa, in Asia, in Europe. She's a worldwide expert, or expert in Region 11, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. So I've said enough. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over this evening to Aletta. We're going to have about an hour. You can ask questions in the chat. And at the end, I'll be moderation where you can raise your hand and I will give the microphone to you. So without further ado, over to you, Aletta.
Thank you, Florian. I hope that everyone can hear me. I wasn't able to hear Florian that well, so I have to trust that he introduced me, giving away any of my secrets. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for making your time available this evening on Guy Fawkes night, where you could be out watching a light show, here you are, and I'm going to do my best to give you fireworks that you'll find not just entertaining, but very useful as you manage your clubs and lead your clubs. So the topic of making a club feel like a member magnet. I want you for a moment to think back on your very first club meeting that you ever attended. I went to my very first meeting, and I have to say I wasn't really made to feel terribly welcome. They had just done a speechcraft course, and they had some of the members from the speechcraft course attending that meeting. So the focus was on those people who they already knew. And I kind of looked around and I felt a bit kind of nervous, I suppose. But then once I went into the room, the quality of me was so good that convinced me to go back. But if you are serious about making your club a member magnet, it's so important to make everyone feel welcome. Okay, somebody says I should turn off my camera. Let's do that, and hopefully, there we go. Hopefully that'll make a difference to at least the audio quality. So there's so much you can do to make people want to be part of your club. And you can do that before they even set foot in your door. I always believe that you've got to give people a really good reason to leave home. We're all busy, and there are so many things we could be doing. So unless your meeting is so good that you make me feel that I'm glad I left home, I'm not going to come back. And that's true for new members, as well as it's also true for your current members. You've got to make it worth their while to give you their time they're never going to get back. So I've come across a few clubs in my time that do an excitement going before the meeting. One of the basics, and it's going to sound so obvious as I say this, but I can tell you that I've come across many clubs where they think it is in place, but it's not. The first thing is, how easy are you to find? Do yourself a favor. Pretend you are someone who's coming to your club for the very first time. And they go onto the Toastmasters website, and they go onto the Find a Club feature, and they type in something in your area. I want you to check what details come up for your club. Go onto your website through that link. Make sure the link is working. Check what happens when you fill in I think there's a feature where you can send an email to the club. In my experience, a number of times I've done this, I've emailed a club, I never get a response. Either that somebody's not monitoring that, or it's going to the wrong person, or both. Check to see whether you're not losing valuable potential guests by that link not being active, or by it going to somebody who's not responsive on email. Check which phone number is there. I know in my own club, I was Club VPPR many years ago, and I stopped being the Club VPR, and probably for about 3 years afterwards, I was still getting phone calls from people who went onto our club website. So make a commitment that those contact details are accurate. If you've got a Facebook page, make sure that it's clear how people can find you. And if they send you a message on Facebook, make sure whoever gets that message is responsive. It's very important. And maybe you use Meetup or one of the other platforms. Again, make sure your information is current. One of the clubs in my hometown of Cape Town is a very successful club. The name of the club is Two Oceans. And I find it fascinating that this club is so successful because they only meet once a month, which I think is crazy, but they manage it really well. But one of their members created a video, and she took a whole series of photographs of the members having fun at the meetings. And she took all these photographs and she found some lovely music and made a little video that was on their website and on their Facebook page. And as the music played, the photos would just scroll through. And it was incredible how powerful this video has been, because it means that the people going onto the website or the Facebook page are excited to go to that club meeting before they've met anyone, based on the atmosphere and the energy that that video creates. So that's another way that you can make people, almost draw them to you by having something that makes it gives them a reason to leave home. Once you're at the meeting, it is so important that you give especially your guests, the warmest welcome you can. And the only way to do this effectively is to make sure that you and your committee are there early, so that the room is set up, so there's not last minute scrambling when guests arrive and you're still trying to put the room together. Make sure that that's all in place, so that when the guests arrive, you can give all your attention to them. I'm a firm believer that by the time the meeting starts, the president of the club should have introduced him or herself to every single guest personally. Go and shake their hand, welcome them. It creates such a wonderful professional feeling if a guest is welcomed not only by the person at the door taking the money, but by the president of the club and possibly one of the other committee members or the Toastmaster of the evening. It really creates an ambiance that makes them feel welcome, because some of them are terribly nervous when they walk in the door for the very first time. I know one of our top clubs in my home district, 74, the club's name is Winelands Club, and they had a system. They had many guests, and when people told them they'd be coming to the meeting, they'd specifically asked the guests to come 15 minutes early, and they would have a committee member assigned to do a quick new member or a guest orientation with them before the meeting, to explain how the meeting's going to run, to explain what a competent communicator is, what a competent leader is, to reassure them that they wouldn't be called on to speak at table topics unless they chose to speak. So they had a real system in place, and they were very successful at recruiting new members. In my home club, we have learned the hard way, I guess, as to what keeps people coming back, new members and guests and your existing members. And we finally came to the conclusion that we needed to have educational value at every meeting. So in our meeting, we will always have a 10 to 15 minute education slot at the beginning of the meeting. And there's a variety of topics. It can be, evaluations. It can be, conquering your nerves before a speech. And Toastmasters has a lot of material that you can download to use for those education slots. They've got the Better Speaker series, which is all about helping you develop your speaking skills. There's the Successful Club series, which is all about running a successful club. So there's a lot of material that you can use. I also find it very useful to run education slots on topics that are of interest to people outside of Toastmasters. So in other words, linking what we learn in Toastmasters to your career. So how to speak to senior management, how to speak when you have to deliver bad news, whatever it is. There can be just a topic, or how to speak up at meetings. Anything that has a business value often has great appeal to people, because they really understand they need to get these skills, and they will come to your meeting to learn those skills because they see the direct value. So I strongly suggest that you have an education slot on a regular basis and invite people outside of your club, other experienced Toastmasters, to run those for you and make them interesting, make them really fun, and they set the tone for the meeting. So if they run very professionally, it immediately just sets the tone for the whole evening, and your guests think, wow, I'm learning here, I'm going to come back. And your members also say, I'm so glad I left home because I'm learning and it's giving me value in exchange for my time. One club I came across in Johannesburg, South Africa. They had a regular slot at every meeting, and they called it the member moment. And that was a 1 to 2 minute slot where somebody in your club, one of your members, stands up and gives a 1 to 2 minute presentation on why they joined Toastmasters, what they've got out of it, and what keeps them coming back. And I think that is really, really powerful, because what happens there is the member gets a chance to express how they've grown. Before I joined Toastmasters, I couldn't do this. Now I've learned these skills and I've got a promotion, or I'm more confident, whatever it is. Those success stories are very compelling for guests, because they are joining because they want to become a success story. They want to learn and benefit from what you've achieved by being a Toastmaster. It's also good for the club, the existing members, to be reminded of what a transformation has occurred in their lives since they've become a Toastmaster member. And then if you're really clever, your VPPR will either video record those slots or audio record those slots with permission, and use those statements on the club website, on the club Facebook page, and that feeds into your PR effort for the club. And people don't join to go through project speeches and to get to manuals. They join to become more effective leaders, and mostly they join to become better speakers. And hearing your success story is a very powerful thing to draw them to your club. So those success stories become member magnets. So if you could have them at every meeting, record them, share them, and keep using them to attract more people, it works exceptionally well. It goes without saying that the quality of your meeting is very important. If your meeting is fun, informative, dynamic, and makes me pleased that I left home, I'm more likely to come to the next meeting. At my own club, we have 1 or 2 members who are very good at writing a meeting summary, and they send it to all the members and people who we've got on our database, and they write it in a wonderfully entertaining way and make the people think, oh, shucks, I missed that meeting. I really am going to make sure that I'm not going to miss the next one. So share the happiness after the meeting. Post either videos or photos on your Facebook page and get those people to share those posts to their network of people within Toastmasters. I mean, within Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whatever it is. Just keep on reminding people how much fun we have being Toastmasters. The quality of your evaluations is crucial to whether or not people want to come to your club. So I know we all work hard on getting top quality evaluations. Make sure that when you have education slots, evaluations are part of those education slots on a regular basis. And keep on training people again and again and again. And if you know someone in your district who's very good at evaluations, get them to come and do a guest slot for you. It's such an important skill. And I think, to me, when I first came as a guest, seeing those evaluations and seeing how they were done and seeing the value really made me appreciate the return on investment that I could gain from becoming a Toastmaster. So now you've created a positive atmosphere before the meeting. You've ensured that your guests and your members are very warmly and professionally welcomed when they get to your meeting. You have run a superb meeting. You've had an education slot, you've had a member moment, and you've captured those to repurpose them for social media and for your website and your Facebook page. Then the meeting comes to a close. In my club, we always ask the guests, what did you think of the meeting? And we ask them that in front of everybody. And then we close the meeting, and then we try very hard that someone goes to chat to those guests afterwards just to find out if there are any more questions they have, to reassure them that, we'd love to see them again. In our guest pack, we have a member application form. But for me, I think it's very important that you actually invite the member to join. And you can encourage them to go to other clubs to see, but I think it's important for them to hear from you that you'd love to see them back next time, and you'd very much welcome them as a member of your club. And make sure that someone follows up the day after the meeting. My suggestion is that somebody actually calls them, not send an email. Somebody phones them and just say, just wanted to follow up with you. What did you think? Any more questions I can help you with? Just like to tell you when our next meeting is, and would you like to join? And if you would like to join, this is how you go about it. Some clubs even pre-populate some of the fields in the membership application form, because it's quite confusing for a new member when they don't know what to answer for some of the questions or the spaces they have to fill in. So if you can proactively fill in the ones that you can, like your district number, your area number, your club number, it just makes it easier. It takes one less element out of what has to be done for that membership application to be complete. And make it easy for them to know how to pay you money to join. Make sure that they know the options available, whether they pay electronically or by credit card or whatever it is. And then as soon as possible, obviously, you want to get them a mentor, you want to get them onto your speaking program so that they start taking action. So that in a nutshell is really member magnets. None of this is rocket science, but it's a lot of little things that when you do them together and you do them consistently, your club will become a member magnet. And it's important that your club committee works together on this, that they all realize the importance that it's not just the VP membership or the Vice President Public Relations that is responsible for bringing people into the club. Each club member, each club executive member has a duty to make guests feel welcome, to invite guests, to look after them, to nurture them. And never forget that you've got to look after your existing members. If some of your existing members stay away for 2 meetings, make sure someone's phoning them. Make sure that somebody is following up on why they're not there, telling them that, we've missed you. We'd like to see you come back to our next meeting. So I think I'm going to hand over to Florian, because we're going to have a Q&A now. You are obviously welcome to put any questions into the chat box, but Florian knows which buttons to push this system. So Florian, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Aletta. A lot of really interesting things there. The floor is now over to you. If you would like to ask a question, you can make a speech request by pressing the hands up button that should be somewhere at the top of your screen. I could see someone pressing it earlier to test the system. So if you'd like to ask a question, please make a speech request and I'll process these as they come. Over to you. Okay, we've got a question from Brad Revel, Area Directors of Area B8. So Brad, over to you. Brad, you can ask your question now.
Would they have to turn a microphone on?
Yes, most likely they will.
Or else put it in the chat box, Brad, if for some reason the
If it
audio is
doesn't
not
work, just put the question in the chat box.
Perhaps go to the next one, Florian, while
Yes,
Brad
okay.
tries to sort out that.
So the next question was from Wally, District 91 Club Membership Extension Chair.
Okay. Okay, I see Adrian has put a question. Would you have a welcome pack for visitors? Yes, absolutely. In the welcome pack would be perhaps some of the pamphlets that you can get from Toastmasters International, and I'm sure that Florian would be able to tell the people where they can get them from. And there would perhaps be, well, definitely a membership application form, an introduction to the club, which might just be a welcome letter from the president. We usually take a photocopy of the icebreaker speech, the criteria, so that if someone joins on the spot, they can actually go home, even if they haven't got their manuals yet, and prepare their first speech. And I would suggest that if you've got success stories from your club members that you've captured, that you have some of those in that pack as well. So I think you can be quite creative. I do believe on the Toastmasters website, you'll probably find a guest pack materials. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you do have to have a whole lot of them ready so that if 10 people arrive at your meeting, you've got 10 guest packs ready for them. We also usually put an old Toastmasters magazine as well, and that usually works really well. Okay, I hope that answers your question,
okay, so
Adrian.
I can see that.
Brad, question. Sorry?
Right. I can see that Brad has typed in his question. So Brad's question was, you've gone through a great detailed list of things to do. What are some of the big mistakes that club make that perhaps impact on membership or puts off guests?
Mm-hmm. I think lack of consistency is sometimes confusing. And I mean, I know that in clubs, things go wrong at the last minute. Someone has a crisis at home or at work and they can't arrive. And that's where your teamwork comes in. So even if things change at the last minute, there should be enough of your team there to fill in the gaps. I think the clubs that put guests off are the ones where the quality isn't good. And I also think I've come to some clubs where one member dominates everything. And that can be off-putting. And if a club meeting is too small, I'm not sure I would have joined a club that only had 3 or 5 people there. But if there are lots of people and it's a vibrant meeting, that becomes very interesting and compelling, and you feel you're part of a success story. There are some clubs where, when I talk about somebody dominating, I've come across clubs where one person insists on being the general evaluator at every meeting. They're the only ones. Or some people who insist on only doing evaluations but will never speak themselves. So you've got to have everybody, receiving and giving evaluations. You've got to have everybody taking turns in the various roles, not dominating or holding on to one position. Florian, do you want to read the next one?
The next question is from Sushil Shah. How to motivate members to turn up to the meeting, even if they don't have a role in the meeting? Very good question.
That is a very good question. Part of that, I think, is the welcome you give your members so that they feel that it's worth their while, even if they're not on the agenda. Another way to tackle that is to make sure that your mentorship program is well developed, because if I don't have a role at the meeting, but I'm a mentor for someone and they are doing a speech, then it would be very interesting for me to go to the meeting to see how they are doing in their speech. You can, if people get bored and they feel they haven't got value, that is part of the reason why they often stay away. So try and make sure that your more established members get a chance to present a member moment or to present an education slot, or ask them to come and mentor somebody who's doing something for the first time. So try and find a role for them, even if it's a mentorship role within that meeting. and always make a fuss of them and have such a fun meeting, and yeah, make them feel like, as I said in the beginning, that they were glad that they left home.
Very good.
Okay.
And the next question is quite interesting that a lot of clubs can relate to. It's from Tanuj Saluja. Our committee believes we have a healthy number of members, speech frequency opportunity. Any new members, however, thresholds where the magnetism should be abated.
That's such a good question, Tanuj. Thank you. I don't have a clear-cut answer for that, because things can change very quickly. You can have a flood of new members, and then the danger is that people don't get a speaking slot, or they can't even get a leadership slot because there's just so much competition. So then I think the committee needs to get together and decide what's best to do. You know, are you getting so big that you need to form another club and split into two? Or perhaps you need to add another meeting, and depends on how frequently you're meeting, but maybe you need to add, if you're meeting twice a month, add a third or a fourth meeting, or, you know, do something that gives more capacity, because when there are too many members, there's not enough capacity to meet their needs. So I don't believe a club should be 40 members big, because I think that's too big. You can't accommodate everybody unless you're meeting weekly, then perhaps you can. But I think it's a debate you and your club should have. And, you know, I haven't mentioned the moments of truth, but if you ran a moments of truth in your club, your members would tell you what they think as well. So I think it's good to check in with them every 6 months, to at least once a year.
That's a very good. That's a very good question. I mean, I'll make a comment on that. Adding extra meetings is an option. The other option is to run a speaker-thon where there's like 6, 7, or 8, or even 10 speakers, which can be a bit of a way to clear a backlog of speech requests and so on. But it's a lot of work on the VP. So again, it has to be balanced. So the next question is from Jackie Rose of Riverside Communicator Twickenham. As a club, we sometimes feel the focus is on new members. How do we ensure that more advanced members are kept satisfied? We have started advanced speakers meeting, but the take-up is not as good as we would like.
That's a very interesting question, Jackie. I think, again, I come back to the mentorship role, because your advanced members and your advanced speakers can have huge value to add in terms of being mentors for younger members that are newer in the program. So I think you've got to make them feel needed, make them feel like they've got a role to play. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by advanced speaker meetings, but you know, I belong to an advanced club, and we always struggle for membership because almost all the members are dual members. So we recently took a decision in that advanced club to not make it a criteria that you had to have finished your CC10. Anybody can join, but that we've now changed the positioning of a club as a club for people who want to develop business speaking skills. And since we've done that, our membership has increased. So I think you've just got to, again, speak to your members, find out what they want, find out what would make them feel needed and make them feel that they are getting their value that they're looking for. I think it's good to have advanced speakers in a club, because if you have a mix of people going through their CC for the first time and people doing advanced speeches and leadership assignments, it makes it more interesting. And there's a depth there that the newer member can then see what they can aspire to be like and the assignments they can aspire to do. So you need a variety, but as always, check in with your members and find out from them what they would need, and then be innovative and try new things. But ask them to have a part in the meeting. I think that would certainly go a long way.
Thank you. Next question is from Adrian Lane of Trojan Speakers, Ealing, West London. I've heard people leave because people say nothing changes. Same format week in, same format week out.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. What do you have to say to this?
Yes, Adrian, I agree with you entirely. I think variety is very good. And you get variety in a number of ways. Obviously, the different role players at each meeting do make a difference. Some clubs are very big on themed meetings, which vary it a little bit. I think my advice would be to play around with the format and to do things that are different, do things that are unexpected. I've always had a lot of success in running education slots that are, as I said earlier on, are business focused. And immediately that's something different. It's not coming out of a Toastmasters manual. It is, but it isn't, if you know what I mean. You're talking about perhaps evaluation skills, but you're putting it in a business context. And just the fact that you're talking a business language makes it more interesting for people. I would encourage you to research different ways of doing a meeting. I once, the craziest one I've ever attended was a back to front meeting. And I'm not sure that I see the point of it, except to cause chaos. It was a lot of fun though, but do something completely different. And one of the things that you can do is to visit other clubs to see how they do it. I know in some of the districts that I've worked with, they do have almost a formulaic meeting agenda. And I kind of think that's fine up to a point, but I like changing things around. I like making things different. So one of the ways you can do that, I'll just give you a short example, and Florian has tried this. When we run demo meetings, we follow a method of running those demo meetings which a guy in the US, Rick Furbush, started. And he said his aim was to get everybody at the demo meeting talking, because if they had a positive speaking experience, they'd be more likely to join. So the way he recommended it was done, and it's a great idea for table topics in any club, is you have a little index card, and as people come in, you ask them to write down, you know, something they're proud of, something nobody knows about them. I always say something that no one would suspect about you, and don't put your name on it. And then the table topics master collects those cards and chooses one or two interesting ones and reads out the statement. And then everybody in the room, whether you know each other or not, say now the statement was, I won a Lucky Legs competition when I was 11 years old. Then it is in this room who won the Lucky Legs competition. And on the count of 3, I want you to point to that person. And it's actually hysterically funny when people do that, because, you know, the funniest things come out and, you know, you think it's one person, meanwhile it's another. So that is just a simple way of doing a table topic in a fun way that will immediately liven up a meeting. I also believe that the education should be very interactive. So don't just make them lecture style. Make them interactive, where the people participate or where you do role plays and you have Q&A. So just be creative and be unafraid of changing the status quo. As long as it's a high quality meeting, I think you'll achieve your objectives.
Yeah, very, very interesting indeed. The next question is from
Florian.
Wally Ososami of Speakers of Croydon. How can we encourage... hello, can you hear me?
Are you there, Florian?
Yes, I am.
Just the comment about the back to front meeting. You can have a lot of fun with that, because you're giving an evaluation. You're giving an evaluation of a... Yeah, there's just a bit of a delay and a bit of a distortion. But
Yes, there is.
The back to front meeting, you're giving an evaluation of a speech before the speech has been delivered. And that's actually a very interesting exercise, because you can almost coach the speaker to say, yes, they use their body language really well and their gestures added to the speech, etc., etc. So, yeah, a lot of fun.
The next question is from Wally Ososami of Speakers of Croydon. How can we encourage members to stay after achieving their initial goals or reaching such as CC? We have a shortage of advanced members in our club.
That's a very, very good question. And I think once Pathways rolls out, that's going to be easier for us to do because the milestones are slightly closer together. So, you're not going to have to wait for 10 speeches before you get recognized and get recognized before. Again, I believe that you need to get advanced speakers in your club or from outside of your club to come to your meeting and to share with other people what they have gained by doing the advanced manuals, how much they have grown by taking that next step. I think also you've got to educate them as to what is available, because often they don't know, and if they haven't seen it in the club, they are unaware of what is there and the potential that is there. So I would speak to your area director and find out where the advanced members are in your area and invite them, and perhaps have an education session on the advanced manuals, and just educate people as to what is available and how that is applicable to real life, to business life, because there's some wonderful manuals that are very much business focused, and that would be a huge asset to people in their career. So I think you've always got to tell them what's available and then get some people who are good at doing those presentations to come and demonstrate those. And I think that would go a long way towards it.
We seem to have run out of questions, so while you keep coming with a question, I will be asking Aletta a question. So, Aletta, in terms of promoting and marketing a club, which channel would you say are the most effective? Would you say it's Meetup, social media, or a website?
I think all of the above. It depends on the demographics of your membership. In my club at the moment, we've got a huge number of very young members. So for them, obviously, the social media is very important. We've had a lot of success in our district with Meetup. So a variety of those. But whatever you use, it's got to be current, and it's got to be, the content has to be fresh, and there has to be somebody responding. So I don't think you can rely on any one individually, but a combination thereof, I think, is your best. I still know clubs that advertise in newspapers. So it just depends on what you feel works.
So a combination. So another question from Brad Revel. You have given us some great advice. Given that we all volunteers and typically time poor, what areas of advice have the biggest bang for buck?
Areas of advice are the biggest bang for buck. Brad, that's difficult to give you a blanket answer on that. I always believe you've got to play to your strengths. So whatever you are good at and whatever you have a passion for, that's where you start. Because you can't possibly do everything. I remember once when I was doing PR, I said, I feel like I'm enough. And the person I chatting to said, Aletta, you could have 2 full-time assistants and be doing it full-time yourself, and you'd still feel like you're not doing enough. So I think you've got to find the balance between playing to your strengths and doing what you enjoy doing and what gives you a return on investment. And I think also you've got to watch out that you don't burn out, because it's quite tragic sometimes when you have very talented Toastmasters and they just don't know when to stop and they burn out, and then the club loses somebody who's infinitely valuable to them. So find a happy balance, but go where your energy is, go where your talents lie, and use those.
Okay, so keep asking question, guys. I'll have another question for Aletta. We've discussed before about putting extra meetings to meet demands. Do you think that there are advantages in moving from fortnightly meetings to weekly meetings for clubs?
My experience in this, I can just give you one case study. In my district, there are very few clubs that meet weekly. Most of them meet every fortnight, and we also have some that meet once a month. And in the venue that my home club meets, and I belong to a club that meets twice a month, and in the same venue, there was another club that met once a month. And they were always limping along. They never quite managed to be a sustainable club. And I eventually chatted to them, and I said to them for a long time, you need to have more meetings. And my reasoning was that if you are paying $45 every 6 months and you're only getting one meeting a month out of that, it's a very poor return on investment. And if I'm away that week of that one meeting, then I have to wait a whole another month. And not everybody wants to go to other clubs. And I said, in comparison, people come to the same venue and they hear there's another club in the same venue, giving them double the opportunity to meet. Everybody came to us. And they eventually kind of saw the light. And the minute they changed their frequency of meetings, their membership grew tremendously. And I think I'm trying to get my own club to meet more often than once every 2 weeks, because our membership base has grown so much. But it's sometimes quite a big thing for people to take on. So sometimes if you're meeting twice a month, I encourage you in a month where there are 5 weeks to add an extra meeting and see how it goes, and try and slowly get people to buy into the idea. There is no doubt that clubs that meet weekly give their members a really good return on investment. And then also their membership, the club executive only serve for 6 months instead of for a year, and they still get credit. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's worth a try.
It's an interesting balance. We've got an interesting comment from Adrian
Lay.
Lay.
A different meeting. Sometimes I think it's a good idea if you meet during the week, perhaps your 5th meeting is on the weekend, on a Saturday or something like that. You can experiment and see. But I think it's worth trying it out.
Yeah. So Wally said, you said, and I quote, the quality of your evaluation is crucial to whether people return to your club. Can you elaborate on that?
Okay. Wally, what I mean by that is if I go to a club and somebody does a speech and the evaluator doesn't add value, in other words, they can do one or two things. They can either whitewash and just say everything was perfect when you know it wasn't, or they can give a very harsh evaluation, which puts people on terror. And both of those don't add value, but the evaluations that are done well, they are the ones where people say, you went over time, and you went over time because you had too many ideas for a short speech and you were cramming stuff in. So my suggestion is that the next time you do it, you have fewer items and you can elaborate more on them, and therefore it'll be a better speech. So that kind of evaluation, it's positive. It has suggestions that give me specific actions that I can take to improve my speaking. So in other words, just by listening to that evaluation, I've learned something. But if your evaluations are just, it was wonderful, thank you so much, I'm looking forward to your next speech, I'm not learning, then that's kind of wasting my time. And equally, if an evaluation is terribly harsh, I'm going to think, I don't want to come back because I'm terrified that that harsh evaluation is going to happen to me. So it's I think the education value of evaluations is what I think is very important.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on the quality of evaluation. an idea that's kind of part of the refurbished method of demonstration meeting, and which we're trying out in the district right now, is interactive evaluation, a letter where there is a prepared evaluation and then the evaluation is thrown to the floor for for all audience members to involve themselves in the meeting. Do you think this is effective, or do you think it's a little bit too gimmicky, perhaps?
Florian, I can't hear you at all.
I'll just try again. So what I was saying is, in the kind of refurbished method for demonstration meeting, a big part is to have an interactive evaluation where the evaluator does a prepared evaluation, and then you open the floor to the audience for them to make a comment on a speech. Do you think this is effective in spicing up normal meetings?
We do that from time to time. And I think it's actually very important because it keeps everybody engaged. The best way to do that would be to pre-alert everyone that we're going to be doing either you can call it a round robin evaluation or a group evaluation for a speech. And you might have to leave a little bit more time than a normal evaluation for that. But it's really good because it gives new members the opportunity to say something without the stress of coming up to the front of the room and doing a full evaluation. So I think there's a lot of merit in doing that. And it's interesting to hear people's viewpoints. And it changes the energy in the room because everybody is involved. It's not just one person standing up and speaking. So I quite like that. I think it's quite a healthy thing to do every now and again. And we all learn in the process.
That's okay. So Jackie made a comment. Some clubs have got a waiting list to join. Are you in favor of that?
Well, Jackie, I think if I was told I have to wait to join, I think I might have moved on. I've never heard of that before, but I would say that you need to serve the member and the prospective member. So if I had to be forced into that situation, I would say, well, we're full up at the moment, but here's another club that you can join. I think it's very unfair just to say, sorry, you must wait, because I would be surprised if people would wait. We live in an era where we expect instant gratification and instant service. So I would not be impressed if I was told I had to wait.
Yeah, I'll make a comment on this one. Shortly after I moved to London, I investigating a couple of clubs in the Victoria area. The first club I looked at was London Cardinals, and I emailed them in advance, got a reply to say, you're very welcome to attend our meetings, but we have a waiting list to join. I did not turn up to a meeting until a year later, when I was a bit more involved in the community and just started visiting more clubs. And as a result, I never joined that club. So that can definitely put people off. And how long can people wait for? Early bird speakers got a system of aspiring member in our, and they're very successful with it. But then there's an element of, oh, we're so successful that we have a waiting list. I'm not sure that's the best yardstick of success, to be honest, in some respect, because these are people that we're losing.
And they're people with needs, and if your needs don't get met, you go somewhere else. When if that was the only option available and there was nothing else in the whole wide world that you could do to improve your speaking, maybe you'd wait. But if somebody said that to me, I wouldn't wait. I'd find something else to do.
Definitely. So, do we have any more questions from the floor, please? Some people haven't had the chance to ask their question, and we've got about 10 minutes left, so that's your chance to ask your question, please. Meanwhile, I will throw another question to a letter. So, what would you say is a good guest to member conversion rate? Because that's a metric I'm really trying to promote that club measures. Would you say 20% is good enough, or would you think it should be higher, like 30 or 50%?
To be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea, because I'm not one who measures the numbers. So I apologize in advance for not having those stats at my fingertips. To me, I've always not worry. I monitor a steady stream of people coming in as guests. And I would say conservatively, I'd say between 30% would probably be average, I would think. But sometimes you have a much higher rate and other times you have a lower rate.
Yeah.
The bigger question is what influences it? Why do people sign up? Is it because they came determined to sign up? Or is it because your club was so good that they signed up? Or is it that your club wasn't so good and therefore they went somewhere else? And that's a very hard thing to measure. But I think the most important thing is just a steady stream of new people coming through the doors that you cannot take for granted. You have to nurture them and look after them. You can't just assume they're going to be there.
Yeah, definitely. It's about keeping the funnel open and then widening the funnel as much as possible. So Adrian's made another comment. Would you always have a general evaluator at a meeting?
I think in a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world. So often if we have either pressure for speaking slots or a longer education slot, then we might vary it and not have a general evaluator at every meeting. So I think that's part of what I said earlier on. You don't have to have a rigorous set formulaic structure to a meeting. Sometimes we don't have a grammarian, other times we do. So I believe that allows you to have some variety. You don't always have to have everything in military order at every meeting.
So Barbara just asked a question. Do you think having the competitive element of voting for best speaker is useful in meetings?
Barbara, I do think it has value. In my experience, if your club members know each other quite well, often the best speaker isn't always the best speaker. Sometimes it's the bravest speaker. But especially for new members, getting that award means the world. Having said that, I know of other members who get so frustrated because they desperately want that accolade and they can't get it because somebody else is better than them. So I think it's good to celebrate. It's good, I think, to spread the happiness. In our club, we have a best speaker, best evaluator, best table topics, and then we also have something called a contribution award, where the Toastmaster, no, actually it's the president of the club, gets to nominate someone they feel has made a contribution either to the club or to the meeting and honors them for that. So I think I quite like it because I think a lot of validation works. But again, you've got artistic license. So if you want to do something different for the bravest speaker or the person who spoke most out of their comfort zone or whatever you decide that title is and have a bit of fun with it, that's great. We also have the Kit Kat Award, and we often give that to somebody who's taking a role for the first time and honor them for stepping out of their comfort zone and being the Toastmaster of the evening or something like that. So, yeah, just have some fun and play with it.
So we've got a question from Yukitaka Matsuda of London Business School. Do you encourage the club to have the Hark Master role in the meeting?
I have to admit that I don't know what a Hark Master is.
Okay, so you will see this role in action when you spend some time with us in London later in the week, Aletta. The Hark Master role is effectively a replacement to the grammarian, except that the person would ask question to the audience in Aletta's speech, where does she say she's come from, and the first person that says Cape Town gets a sweet or a chocolate.
I love it.
Fruit. Yeah,
I think that's a very clever way of keeping people engaged. I'm a great believer that people will do almost anything for chocolate. So rewarding them with chocolate always goes down well in my book. So I think that's just part of the fun. And obviously, the more humorous that is and the more engaging that is, the more fun it is. So yes, I think anything like that is teaching us stuff in a very novel way. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Do we have any final questions? Because we're getting towards the end of the webinars. Oh, question from Liang T. Lee. We have many busy members and they cancel their speech enroll at the last minute. Sometimes we end up with only 1 to 2 speeches the weekend before and it becomes a trend. More and more members show they're busy on the agenda system. One time we only had 2 speeches at the end.
Liang, you're speaking about a universal pain. It is a big problem. I can only speak from personal experience. We have that problem in our club, and unfortunately, it is a regular trend. At each meeting, we send around a roster for the next few meetings, and we usually have at least 5 speakers at a meeting, but we will actually have a list of 10, and we encourage people to be standby speakers. And for anyone who's ambitious and wants to get through the program quickly, we say to them, if you are prepared ahead of time and have a speech ready at short notice, you will get preference on the speaking slot. It's not an ideal solution, but we make it cope. We cope using this method. So I think you've just got to try and manage it. It's very frustrating. When I was VPE, I learned very quickly to deal with last minute change, and that was one of the ways we did it. And I think there is scope as well, if you know of other clubs in your area that are very busy and don't have enough speaking slots, make it known to them that you have speaking slots available and get some of those members to come to you.
Okay, so unless there are any final questions, I will be concluding. So about 15-20 seconds to type your final questions, guys, please. Nigel just said TI should supply all VPs with a supply of Prozac.
Whatever it takes, they've got to have.
I can make the suggestion to Samantha of the Toastmasters store, but I'm not sure it's going to be possible. But you never know.
Exactly.
Okay, well, it's been a really interesting hour we've spent with Aletta on discussing membership growth, membership retention, club marketing, and also club quality in many respects. Jackie's just made the very helpful comment, is everyone aware of the G and Speakers Exchange? So this is a WhatsApp group that exists in London for exchanging Gs and speakers. And I would if you're not from London, I would encourage you to reach out with your neighboring clubs to set up something similar, because it has been extremely successful in London. This idea has been extremely successful in London. It's almost like a managed anarchy as well, which I find fascinating as a big believer in hierarchy and structures. But that goes to show that anarchy works. Now, Aletta will be spending the entire week with us in UK South, and she's doing a number of events. So on Monday, she will be doing an event in Winchmere Hill Speaker in North London, where she's going to be discussing how to prepare a speech with no time to prepare. So this is going to be at 7:30 in Winchmere Hill. The nearest tube stop is Southgate on the Piccadilly line. It's a bit out of the way, but it should be a really interesting workshop. On Tuesday evening, she will be running that same workshop again in central London, in London Victorians, where she will also see the Arcmaster role in action, and the Arcmaster will come after a workshop. So the audience will be quizzed on Aletta's workshop right there. And finally, on Thursday, she's doing an event in Beckenham on Speaking to Inspire, which should be really interesting. It's in South London. You can get some fast trains from Victoria. The details of all these events are on the London Speaker website as well. Please attend. Aletta is a really amazing and a really good speaker. If you've got any final question, you can send me an email. Most of you know my email or my WhatsApp. I've got an open door policy. And this webinar has been recorded. So if you haven't been able to see it, or you know someone you'd like to send it to, it will be put on the District 91 YouTube channel in the next few days. We've got another webinar coming in a fortnight with Lance Miller. Now, Lance is a fascinating guy and the world champion of public speaking for 2005. He's going to do a webinar on how to basically create a championship club, which is a club to support, so you can create the best club environment to nurture a champion in your club. This should be a really interesting webinar. Please come along. He's going to be dialing in all the way from Los Angeles, California. I have just sent the registration links to all of you. Liang is asking if to have a webinar on how to prepare a speech in no time. I will liaise with Aletta on this, but the workshop in London Victorian on Tuesday will be recorded. So we're going to try and record it and put it on YouTube, so then you can share it and discuss it. That will be a very good event. And she's just sent a link to a mini course as well. So sadly, we cannot do a round of applause to close off this event. It's been great to have you. Please sign up to the upcoming webinars. We're going to be running these at least every fortnight. And if you're interested in presenting one, let me know, let Wally or Susami know. And have a very good evening and enjoy your Guy Fawkes night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Florian. Bye.
Good night, everyone.